to our virtual history tour of Fort Mitchell. This summer, we explore the history and stories of houses and families at Fort Mitchell. We will post a new video every Friday in June and July highlighting a new house and its history. Videos will be posted to our Facebook group, Kenton Library Archives, and our Kenton County Public Library YouTube channel. We will also have a special tour-related post on our Instagram account, Kenton Library Archives. Our first stop today is 31 Fort Mitchell Avenue, or the Harry Welling House, as it was referred to in the Historical Register. 31 Fort Mitchell Avenue has had several occupants over the decades, many of which were quite prominent individuals in the Fort Mitchell area. Before I get into the history of the house, I'd like to first give a brief overview of the style of the home, as it's unusual for the area. The house is a great example of a Spanish eclectic style home. The house was constructed around 1920 and is covered with rough stucco and features tall, arched windows. The building's plans for the home are often described as irregular. I wasn't familiar with that term or what that meant for a home building, but an irregular plan simply means that the structure of the house has a certain geometric shape or a stiffness in the design. The home has a low-pitched roof made of brightly colored clay tile. Like the windows, the doors also follow this round, arched shape as well. Some homes are built in this style also feature stained glass or wrought iron grillwork. Based on an image of the home in 1930 from the Kentucky Post and the current images in the video, you can see that very little about the home has been changed since it was first built. It appears that an addition may have been added to the garage side of the house in the continuing years. As I mentioned earlier in the video, the Historical Register refers to 31 Fort Mitchell Avenue as the Harry Welling home, and that's where our history begins. Harry Reeves Welling was well known in the Fort Mitchell area as a businessman in several realms. At the time of his death, he had been living in Los Angeles with his wife after years in the real estate business, but that's not where he got his start. On August 1st, 1883, to George Welling and Minnie Blank, Harry grew up in Kenton County as an only child. From the 1900 census record, we learned that George worked as a brass finisher. That may seem self-explanatory, but brass finishers worked a very technical job that also needed an artistic eye to create straight lines and neat curves, all by hand. This was also work that needed to be done quickly. In his obituary, it was stated that George had worked at the Michaels Art Bronze Company for more than 50 years. Minnie is listed on the census record as working as a stenographer, so Harry grew up in a household where both parents worked, which may have been unusual for that time. Harry's great-grandfather, George Sr., immigrated to the United States from Prussia around 1825, along with his wife, Catherine. George Sr. and Catherine are both buried in Linden Grove Cemetery in Covington. Harry's career as a young man began with him working as a bookkeeper for a lumber company around 1910. He was newly married at that point, having wed Jessie C. Krieger a few years prior in August of 1908. In 1913, Jessie gave birth to the couple's only child, Harriet Jane Welling. Harry and Jessie enjoyed socializing in town and could often be seen in the society pages of the Kentucky Post, attending events such as picnics, tennis, and golf tournaments. He continued to grow in his career by taking on a few increasingly prominent positions in Kenton County. In 1925, Welling was made president of the Goldschalk Furnace Company in Covington, one of the larger companies in the city during that time. By 1931, Welling had rose to the position of president of the Valley Paint and Roofing Company, located at 107 Park Place in Covington. His last director-level role was at the Allen Anti-Rust Paint Company. By the late 1930s, Welling had moved into real estate, a field that he would stay in until he retired. During this time of the late 1930s through 1940s, Welling appeared many times in the local papers, advertising various real estate for sale and brokering deals. Harry and Jessie eventually moved to the West Coast at 6105 Lexington Avenue in the heart of Hollywood, California. According to the 1950 census, Harry was then working as an accountant and Jessie was a section manager at a retail department store. Harriet stayed behind in Northern Kentucky, working as a stenographer. Harry died on May 19th, 1969, at 85 in California and was returned to Kentucky with his burial at Highland Cemetery in Fort Mitchell. Jesse passed away about a year later on April 2nd, 1970, and is buried with Harry in Highland as well. Lastly, Harriet Jane died in 2012 at 98 years old. She is also buried in the same lot as Harry and Jesse at Highland. If you'd like assistance with researching your own historic Kenton County property or family, you can make a one-on-one research assistance appointment by calling 859-962-4070 or emailing history@kentonlibrary.org.